Do you want a man for president who's seasoned through and through, but not so doggone seasoned that he won't try something new? A man who's old enough to know
and young enough to do.
Well, it's up to you, it's up to you, it's strictly up to you.
But it's Kennedy, 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 Kennedy for me.
Kennedy,
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 Kennedy.
Do you want a man with spirit who is not afraid to fight?
A man whose record shows that he will fight for what is right.
A loyal man who'll bring the job a fresh new point of view.
Well, it's up to you, it's up to you.
It's strictly up to you.
Cause it's Kennedy, 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 Kennedy for me.
Kennedy, Kennedy, Kennedy.
And do you deny to any man the right he's guaranteed to be elected president, no matter what his creed?
It's promised in the Bill of Rights to which we must be true.
So it's up to you, it's up to you.
It's strictly up to you.
And it's Kennedy, 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 Kennedy for me.
Kennedy, Kennedy, Kennedy.
Do you like a man who answers straight, a man who's always fair?
We'll measure him against the others, and when you compare, you cast your vote for Kennedy and the change that's overdue.
So it's up to you, it's up to you, it's strictly up to you. Yes, it's Kennedy, 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 Kennedy.
Welcome, welcome, welcome from my humble second bedroom here in the Saucon Valley, part of the Lehigh Valley in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, part of these United States, North American continent, Western Hemisphere. On this planet Earth, the only one we have. Third rock from the sun in the Terran solar system, part of the Milky Way galaxy. This is TKE Tonight, the Kennedy Effect tonight for the 8th of July, 2024. And just very quickly, I just made it. I just made it. I was trying to have a little bit of time with Kristen so we could kind of reintroduce ourselves again and get to know each other. And you know, so it goes. We went to we're very, very lucky, and I mean really lucky, that we live in a really lovely townhouse complex. We have really lovely neighbors. There's so many wonderful dogs in the neighborhood, and good couples, kids, people of all sorts of ages and backgrounds, and retired all the way to young couples in their first homes, and students who rent places that, you know, they rent here and go to Lehigh University just on the other side of the hill. And it's a lovely, lovely community. And among the things that we have is a pool, a community pool here, a complex pool, which is really, really well done. And boy, we do enjoy going there. And tonight, goodness. Though I know some people love their pool water to be like cold and freezing, and I can't do any of that. I can't. I need it like bath water. I'm an old man, and I'm, you know, set in me ways and things like that. And I look for I want bath water, right? And boy, tonight it was like bath water. And, you know, Kristen did a lovely job, as she always does, you know, getting us down to getting a dinner together for us, taking it down there. And I feel really crappy because I kind of abandoned her down there to bring everything back up, because I had to be here. And I stayed there. I really did stay there a bit too long. I should not have stayed that long. But I just made it. I just made it back. In fact, I'm fine. I thought I didn't even clean myself up. Sausage and peppers, gang. It was fantastic. Anyway, this is TKE Tonight, the Kennedy Effect tonight for the 8th of July, 2024, the second full broadcast week for GCPR, Ghost Claw Productions Radio. If you're watching, thank you. We are live right now on, well, we should be live on 2 YouTube channels, GCPR and That Other Side of Information. We are live on my Facebook page, Jeff Kennedy, and my Twitch, and my LinkedIn, and no, I don't remember what the other thing was. I'm not sure why my Twitter's not working. George and I added it. We added Twitter, and it was working, but it seems to have stopped, and I can't. I'm not sure why. I think I have to do. I have to add something almost every time I want to do it. I think that's what it is. But regardless, we're here. We continue to battle technical problems. If you were with us here on GCPR yesterday, we had the debut episode of Impolite Company with Pastor Best, a man who has a life's of experience in politics, and then received a calling to the ministry, and becomes a singularly unique individual in my mind, who has a pretty full lifetime of experience in politics and this experience in religion. And hopefully you checked him out. And remember as well, please, that if you miss any of these programs, you can find them on YouTube. Just search for them. Search for GCPR, search for The Kennedy Effect, That Other Side of Information, Cold Dead Hands, Impolite Company. All of that, you will find it on YouTube. And I just happen to personally think, and you need not agree with me, nobody ever has to agree with me, that YouTube is just the easiest place to catch up on episodes of any of our programming here at GCPR that you missed. I just think it's the easiest place, because you hit play. If you have to stop, hit pause. You can pick it up right where you left off if you walk away from it. I just think it's I just think it's the easiest place myself. You may not agree, and goodness knows you are certainly allowed to not agree with me, goodness knows. But just, I think that's the easiest place. So I hope that you'll do that. If you ever miss any programming that is live on GCPR, look for us on YouTube, gcpr.live YouTube channel, and you can find us there as well. Anyone who does internet broadcasting of any consequence, or at all, just really at all, even when nobody's watching and they record things, or these channels where these folks are playing video games, or maybe they're building a model step by step, and these things are, or maybe they do how-to videos on how to plant plants, or how to take tarnish off of silver, or things. There's nothing really that you can't learn on these channels. We survive with the very the very tedious. It's tedious to ask you for it, but we survive on likes and clicks and subscriptions. And I don't mean paid ones either. I just mean subscriptions. So I hope that you will consider doing that for us at GCPR. Like, subscribe, follow, share, wherever it is that you find us, wherever it is that you take us in, whatever the appropriate thing is for that particular platform, please do that. It will help us grow. And it might sound a little strange, but even if you don't like it, because sometimes the best things that we follow or engage with are the things that we don't like, because we like to push back against it, or we like to comment on it, or we like to talk about it. So I hope, it is my sincere hope, I invite you. You are welcome. Insert all proper terms here to please check us out. GCPR.live, GCPR.live. Please check us out on all the various platforms. If you can't find GCPR, look for the show names on the various platforms. The Kennedy Effect, Villain's View, Sound of Coffee, Conversations with T. Nathan, Cold Dead Hands, Impolite Conversation, The Help Desk. I don't think I'm forgetting anything. Someone will yell at me if I am. Let me go quick to the chat before we get into tonight's big stories. Donna says hello. Donna, can't thank you enough for being here again. Got to be better things that you could be doing with your evening. But don't mistake that, self-effacing kind of humor for a lack of gratitude. Please don't confuse it that way, because we couldn't do it without you. We thank you so much for being here. It means everything to us. Thank you very, very much. And please, anybody that's already here, share. Please feel free to share the program. Share it out of YouTube. Share it across Facebook, wherever you can. It's how we grow. It seems like a very simple thing to do. It seems like a very mundane thing to do. You're probably sick to death of being asked to do such things. Every time you click on a video on YouTube, you get hit with the like, subscribe, help us out. Well, the truth is that's how we grow. So I hope that you'll consider that. Randall, of course, is here. You're the best, my friend. I hope you are well. Let me see. Somebody said hello from the Twitch channel. I have no idea who that is, because it comes up as me. I'm clearly not doing it. I'm a little busy. Somebody's saying hello from the YouTube channel. It might be George doing that. Not sure. And I'm not sure. George, I'm guessing, is having problems joining us, is my guess. As I mentioned last night, as I mentioned last week, this program that allows us to bring video to you is really a lovely program. It looks fantastic. It looks... I don't even know what that second screen is. How's that sound? There's a weird one for you. I don't even know what it is. And it disappeared, and I didn't do that. But that said, look, it just keeps... I don't even know what that is. I'm not doing that. George might be doing that. But that said, it's a lovely program. It's very pleasant to look at. The little bits, that are in the corners and the nice presentation. Like, it's nice, but it has not been. It's not been the easiest thing to work with. I've got to be honest with you. It's not been the easiest thing. Donna says it's all right to spend some time with your significant other. Yeah, well, I hope she stays that way. Because I mean, this, it's a long day. It's a long day. I'm up at 5 for work. I'm out the door by 7. And part of that is my fault, because I'm just not the kind of guy that can roll out of bed, take a shower, throw clothes on, go to work. I can't do that. I have to be awake. I have to be up for a little bit. I like to spend a little time with the cat, especially since he's sick. We have to get the dog out, things like that. I do make a cup of coffee. I try to watch a little bit of Morning Joe. And then I get myself to work. I don't leave until after 5. I'm home by usually 5:45. Then I walk the dog some more till about 6:15, 6:30. I have Democratic committee meetings usually every night at 7. And then I'm here with you from 8. And look, first world problems. Let me be very, very, very plain. First world problems. I have a roof over my head. Kristen and I had a lovely, lovely dinner by our pool with friends and neighbors here. These are first world problems. Make no mistake. They are first world problems. So, but it is tiring. It's a long day. I'm not a young guy, and I'm sure as hell not healthy. That's for damn sure. Gambit makes fun of me saying we got to get those high volume LinkedIn numbers. You'd be surprised, sir, just because they're not commenting. I received notice yesterday. We were live on LinkedIn that 70 something people took in the video. So that's not bad. It doesn't sound like a lot, but for a platform like LinkedIn, which is generally business and short blurbs and investment and businessy kind of articles, and not so bad. He also reminds me, I forgot another show to mention to you, Rules of Nerdquisition. If you're a sci-fi, comic-y, sci-fi, comics, fantasy fan, Star Trek, Star Wars, Marvel, DC, Lord of the Rings type, if that stuff interests you, Dune, because I just watched Dune Part 2 yesterday. If any of that interests you, Rules of Nerdquisition, great show for you. Check it out, gcpr.live. I will put the website again in the chat, as I normally do. gcpr.live. Anyway, let's get to the big stories of the day. I highly doubt I will be able to take your calls, except... Oh, I didn't change that. Except, I think, somebody's in here that's not supposed to be in here. It's kind of weird. Because there's another little box over here, and I tried to kick this person out, and it tells me you can't because you're the host. So I think at the end of the program, I'm going to try and boot this little box out and see if it's actually somebody. I think Restream tried to link to my Zoom without me knowing it. It does some stuff on its own. It's AI, I guess. Did I turn the phones on? I don't think I did. I believe that the only way I'm going to be able to take your calls... Oh, it is George. Well, why aren't you in here? You nut. It is George. He's doing goofy stuff. All right. Why aren't you here on the screen then? Anyway. I think the only way I could possibly take your phone calls is the good old-fashioned hold the phone to the mic, which is going to be difficult for the person on the other end. It means it would have to be strictly a phone conversation, and there's a chance that some of you out there won't hear the caller, but it does work. It's sloppy. It's a little sloppy compared to what we're used to, but it would work. And perhaps we'll try that a bit later in the program. Let me get to a couple of big... In my mind, there are two big stories. But there's one, and then there's a 2A and 2B. Because 2A and 2B go together. And shocker, they're not domestic stories. We as Americans tend to be very self-absorbed at times. We don't take enough time to look outside ourselves and see what's happening in the rest of the world unless there's some type of crisis, i.e. war in Ukraine, war in the Middle East, famine in Africa, China literally building islands in the Pacific to use for naval bases, the North Koreans having a nuclear test. We tend to not look outside ourselves enough. And two of the stories that I want to get to tonight are European based, but let's get there after a second. What I think is the biggest story of the day comes from, surprise, surprise, Washington. Gee, shocker. Gee, shocker, he's talking national politics again. Shocker. Yeah. And it's from the Associated Press, which is my go-to now because it's free. It's free. So I use it. The budget at GCPR is about as full as George's screen. It's mostly dark with a little dot. The little dot is our budget. The mostly dark bit, that's all the money we don't have. And if the team is listening, if the senior officers are on the bridge and listening right now, they're probably hopefully they're having a giggle out of it. But anyway, the big story, I think the big domestic story today, it comes from Washington. Surprise, surprise. From the Associated Press, an article by Lisa Mascaro, Zeke Miller, and Sung Min Kim. And I hope I said his name or her name correctly. I hate butchering names, but sometimes I'm just not sure that I get it correct, but we always want to give credit to the sources that we use here on the program, including of course, the Associated Press. I would use the Guardian more if they didn't turn themselves into a pay site that is, it's affordable for some people, not this guy. So, anyway, that said, from the Associated Press, Lisa Mascaro, Zeke Miller, Sung Min Kim. Headline: Biden tells Democrats he won't step aside, and key lawmakers support his re-election campaign. From Washington, President Joe Biden stood firm Monday against calls for him to drop his re-election candidacy and called for an end to the inter-party drama that has torn apart Democrats since his dismal debate performance last month, as key lawmakers expressed support for him to remain in the 2024 presidential race. Here's one of the really interesting things that main media does. I'm not going to drop a Sarah Palin lamestream media on you. I'm not going to drop a mainstream media on you. There is corporate media. There is media that is not corporate, free speech TV, Pacifica radio stations, GCPR. But this is one of the interesting things that corporate media does. And I happen to enjoy the Associated Press. I think they do brilliant reporting. I think they might be one of the last places in the U.S. that does genuine, real reporting. But even they do get drug into these, I don't want to say memes, but these narratives, these overtones that the president's debate performance has destroyed the Democratic Party. We're all torn apart. It's going to be 1968 all over again, where we're beating the hell out of each other outside the convention. That's all bullshit. Are there sections, are there groups within the party that are deeply concerned? Yes. Are they rightly concerned? Yeah. Has the party splintered into 1,000 pieces where suddenly, no matter whom the Democratic nominee is, we're all just going to vote for 50 different people? No. First off, it's the Democratic Party, let's be honest. Republicans fall in line. They do as they're told. They tend not to think. They are generally told how to think. Democrats happen to think more. We happen to think for ourselves. And that's why you do get this consternation over the president's debate performance, which was, I'm not even sure dismal covers it. I've heard abysmal, tragic, complete disaster, disastrous. I'm not sure there's enough poor and negative pronouns to describe it. It was brutal to watch. But did it splinter the party into 1,000 different pieces? Is the Democratic Party in the state in 2024 that it was in 1968? I don't believe so. I truly don't. Because I happen to believe that at the end of the day, we know that whether it's Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Cory Booker, Gavin Newsom, Josh Shapiro, Gretchen Whitmer, as we talked about last night, Elizabeth Warren, Amy Klobuchar, I don't know, fill in lots of different, you can fill in a lot of different names, probably 24 different names. That if it's any of those people, that at least we're better off. And we know that we have to stop Republicans, especially in this year, where their platform of 2020, Project 2025 is out there, telling you exactly what they want to do to destroy and end the American experiment. And let me tell you, Republicans, because I know some of you are out there listening, not a ton, let's be honest, but there's definitely some. If you want to come here, tell me I'm wrong, tell me I'm nuts, you want to argue with me, if you want to have substantive policy debates, I think we should do this with taxes. I think we should do that. I think education needs this. I might think it needs this. I'll have those discussions all day long. I wish those were the discussions that we were having. Those discussions have taken a back seat to the only question that remains in this election cycle. The only question left. Will this be just the next in a series of elections, or will it be our last? Will the American experiment, the American democracy, the oldest continuing functioning democracy on earth, will we still be a democracy for our 250th birthday, or will we be a dictatorship? These are the only questions that are left. I wish this election cycle was talking about things like taxes and education and spending and foreign policy, and should we lower defense spending and take some of that money and use it elsewhere, or should we this and that. I mean, there's so many different things that we could be and should be talking about. But really, at the end of the day, the only question that's left is, do we preserve this democracy or do we allow it to end? That's it. That's just the truth of it. That's it. There's nothing else left to discuss. After November 5th, if President Biden or some other Democrat is elected, we can go back to talking about policy. If Trump is, I guess you would say, reelected, then all bets are off. Then I think it's the end of democracy. And listen, folks, I sure as hell ain't the only one that thinks it. I am not the only one that thinks it. I will consistently remind you of the question that was posed by Professor Eddie Glaude of Princeton University in a kind of a rant of consciousness. But then again, his rants of consciousness are always so much more eloquent, and they seem to be so much more well thought out, almost like a story, rather than a spontaneous answer to a question. And he was on one of these streams of consciousness when he just stopped and said, look, took a breath and was kind of exasperated and said, how the hell can you run for an office to run a country when you hate 3/4 of the people in it? And when you hate the government of the country itself, that's what's left. That is the central, preeminent, most prominent, use whatever synonyms you want to use. That is the issue of this campaign. Will we be a democracy come midnight, November 5th into 6th? Or will that be the end of it? Into the chat, Donna wants to see George's face. I will put George on the camera before we sign off. George says he has a face for radio. What the hell do you think this is? That's why it's called GCPR, Ghost Claw Productions Radio. You really think about it, though, in all honesty, there are very few radio shows left in any format, including music, that don't do some sort of simulcast or live stream. Sports talk especially is all over television and big channels. The progressive hosts are all over Free Speech TV. Stephanie Miller's on in the morning, Tom Hartman in the afternoon, Randy Rhodes. Tom Hartman has a YouTube channel. I think Randy Rhodes does too, actually. So there's always a video component to all of these radio presentations. And we're no different, but that doesn't mean we don't still have faces for radio. That's 100% correct. My goodness. Randall, is that Randall that asked that? I keep grabbing the wrong mouse. I have two mice, I guess you'd say, on my desk, and I keep grabbing the wrong one for the wrong computer. What do you think about the Russian attack on the Children's Hospital in Kyiv and other parts of Kyiv and 3 other cities in Ukraine? It's mass murder of civilians. It is mass murder of civilians. Shocker, I agree with Randall. It is mass murder of civilians. It's war. It's a war crime. But it goes to speak to the way the Russians view. I should put this comment up so you can read it. It goes to this wonderful feature of Streamlabs that I keep forgetting about. It goes to show, it speaks to the way that Putin views Ukraine. He doesn't think it's a sovereign country. He doesn't think Ukrainian is a nationality. He thinks they're all disaffected Russians. And that Ukraine is part of Russia. Very important, actually, to note that Putin has never said that he thinks Ukraine is part of the Soviet Union, but he believes it to be part of Russia. And some of the borders that were drawn at the end of the Russian Revolution and at the breakup of the Soviet Union were also quite arbitrary. The easternmost sections of Ukraine, which Russia now controls, are predominantly Russian in heritage. Because borders are not fixed lines going back to when man first emigrated out of Africa. They're blurry. Ukrainians, slowly fade into Russia. Borders were drawn by men, by nations, by governments, not by tribes and not by individuals. But Putin doesn't think that Ukraine is a sovereign nation. He believes it to be part of Russia. He's told you this. When they tell you who they are, listen. That's part of it. We should be listening. He sees this war as a repatriation of Russian territory. So bombing it indiscriminately, the stealing of thousands of children and repatriating them almost sounds very clean and almost positive. Kidnapping, trafficking thousands of Ukrainian children into Russia, plucking them in with Russian families to be raised as Russian. He's not just trying to defeat Ukraine. He's not just trying to conquer it. He's trying to erase it. He's trying to erase the nation and the nationality. So bombing a children's hospital, what does he care? That's why there was a lot of consternation early on in the war about why would Putin destroy these cities, flatten them and level them? Why not take them street by street and keep the infrastructure? All the less he would have to rebuild after it was over, because he doesn't see any of it as valuable. It's just another part of Russia. For him, it's like the United States trying to conquer Oregon. And it's a really bad analogy, like a really bad one. So, is it mass murder? Of course it is. Is it a war crime? Of course it is. But it really speaks to what Putin thinks of Ukraine. It just does. Donna says, not a conspiracy theorist, but my husband and I, but your husband, Mike? I'm kidding. That went back to last week. Somebody did something to the president before he went on stage. I don't. You know what somebody did to him? He turned 81. That's what happened to him. Time, which is ultimately victorious over all of us, no matter how much money we have. Time. David Koch was one of the richest people on earth. He and his brother Charles were worth 50-something plus billion dollars. Right? They're among the richest people on the planet. Didn't stop David from getting cancer and dying. Even though he sponsors the cancer hospital in New York City, he got the finest treatment money could buy and still died of it anyway. Time is always victorious. Randall says, keep telling the truth about the Democratic Party. It is what it is. I know it's clickbait. I know it draws people it draws eyes to screens and clicks to news stories that the Democratic Party is splintered in 1,000 pieces. We're so torn up over ourselves about what to do about President Biden. No, we're not. We're not. Are there people in the Democratic Party, including some high office holders, who think the president should step aside? Absolutely. But if he remains the candidate, will they all work for him and vote for him in November? You're damn right they will. This is not 1968. It is not. It's not. Are there worry warts? Are we really, really good as Democrats about eating our own? Yup. Yeah, we are. Do not let the media convince you that the party is broken in 1,000 pieces, because it isn't. Are there people inside of it who do not believe that the president should be on the ballot? Yes. Are there people who believe he should step aside? Yes. Is there anybody that's saying, oh, the hell with it, good, let him run and lose and we'll take Trump for 4 more years? No, I don't know anybody who's saying that. Campaigns have become money makers for TV, radio, what used to be newspapers, for online reporting. Campaigns are money makers. Why did CNN put commercial breaks in a debate? Because they could sell the advertising for big bucks. 40% of the country said they were going to watch it. That's Super Bowl type ratings. This isn't American Idol, for Christ's sake. It's the future of the country. The only reason there's not a debate every single week is because Biden and Trump won't agree to it. If CNN could do a debate every damn week, they would. Because people watch them. Thank God. And because they can sell advertising during them. News should not be a moneymaker. It should be news. One of my friends here in our development, who's a Republican, by the way, and we talk about politics, he and I, and we don't agree. We agree on a lot more than he's probably willing to admit. But there's things we don't agree about. But we're always neighbors. And we're always friends. And the conversations are always respectful and polite. But he said something to me yesterday. When Walter Cronkite signed off, I stopped watching the news. And there's a lot of people who feel that way. Because that really was the beginning of when news became, because Cronkite signed off in the 80s during the Reagan administration, if I'm not mistaken, when Reagan got rid of the Fairness Doctrine and news fell under the purview of entertainment and became money-making. So a lot of people feel that way, except that you can't be tuned out. You can't be. It's too damn important. And it's not hard to be involved, and it's not hard to be informed. And if you're one of these folks who don't trust any domestic media whatsoever, oh, the left-wing media, there's no such effing thing, by the way. There's only about 6 to 8 companies that own, 80% of the media in the country? There's no such thing as left-wing media, folks. None. But if you don't trust any of it, then get your news from outside the country looking in. The BBC, the CBC, the Canadian Broadcasting Company, NHK, I think I have those initials right, from Japan. Al Jazeera. Yeah, he said Al Jazeera. Get the outside eyes looking in. If you don't believe what the domestic eyes are telling you, then get the eyes from outside the country who have no vested interest, or at least not the same vested interest. Let me see. I want to do comments. Oh, hey, Tom. Very happy to have Tom Bruno here. Let me put this on the screen, too. Tom Bruno was a guest of ours on our Sunday program. Oh, goodness, no. Gosh, it was like a month ago already. That went fast. Tom writes a really, really cool blog. I think you should check it out. I think you'd enjoy it. These are not, Tom's an exceptionally bright man. Very, very smart man. His blogs are readable. It's not nuclear physics. You can read it. You can understand it. And I think it'd be worth for you to check out. He mentions also in the chat that you can't mention 3.5 years of progress in just 90 minutes, referring to the president's performance in the debate. Well, that's for darn sure. But that's the way the media tries to break it down. Bumper stickers, 15-second sound bites. The future of democracy is not going to be laid on it's not a 15-second soundbite. Make America Great Again is not the future of it. It doesn't adequately explain that this election is about the future of American democracy. You can't put that on a bumper sticker. But that is the central question. When we go to bed the evening of November 5th and wake up the morning of November 6th, will we still be a democracy? That's the question. That's the question. I'd like to get to the other kind of two-part big story. And that is elections that happened in Europe over the weekend. Really over the long weekend. And on July 4th, ironically, and I do think it was somewhat ironic, I really do, the UK had parliamentary elections, national elections. And after 14 years of consistent Conservative Party rule, the Conservatives were historically drummed out of office. And in a parliamentary system, it is not unusual for multiple parties to have to agree to form a coalition because this group of parties happens to agree on enough things that they want to keep the other party or parties out of power. That's not even necessary. Labor had a sweeping, historic win in these elections. The Conservatives were drummed out of office at a historic level. Now, I should have had this pulled up. And considering that it's old, I don't know that I'm going to be able to find it from leftover from the elections. It would really be great if I could. UK general election. There we go. I was hoping to find what the actual final numbers were. I should have saved the article. Maps and charts. But it was an absolute landslide for Labor. And I'm trying to find. I'm so sorry. I should have pulled this up. I should have pulled this up. The Conservatives, if I remember correctly, there are 450 seats in the British Parliament. And it's a parliamentary system. And I would suggest highly that you Google it. For me to try to explain it in our remaining 12 minutes would be really ridiculous. And I suspect I'd get something of it wrong. And there is a program coming up. Cold Dead Hands comes up right after us in 10 minutes. Cold Dead Hands, 9 p.m. GCPR Live. So I can't deeply get into it, but parliamentary system is fundamentally different than our system. If there are 6 political parties and you go for a national vote and this party receives 60% of the vote, then they get 60% of the seats. And then another party gets 20% and they get 20%. And even if somebody gets 2% of the vote, they get 2% of the seats. Everyone is represented. The framers very specifically did not want a parliamentary system here. And I think because they feared a proliferation of parties. At the same time, if you go through the Federalist Papers and some of the letters back and forth between the framers post-ratification of the Constitution, you'll see Jefferson's consternation at the fact that only 2 parties really emerged. He thought there should be more. He also thought there should be none. He would have rather that there had been none, but if there were going to be parties, he would have hoped that there would have been more than 2. And some of the letters back to him will say, of course this was going to happen. People would find their tribe. Anyway, all of that said, there's 450 seats in the UK Parliament. I think I have my numbers correct. And I'm doing it from memory. I believe I have it correct. That the Conservatives had 261 seats. They now only have 131 left. Imagine 435 House members. Imagine 135 of them being turned out in one election. That just doesn't happen here in this country. Congress has a 12% approval rating, but your local congressperson has a 98% approval rating. Oh, Congress sucks, but my guy's awesome. I got news for you. He's probably not. Kind of hard for a whole body to have 12% approval rating, but your guy or gal, she's fantastic. He's the best. That's probably bullshit. Those two things don't mix. That said, 135 members of the Conservative Party were turned out of Parliament, and Labour took the overwhelming majority of those seats. Labour is now the majority, and they did not have to form a coalition. And within hours, think of this, within hours. Well, okay, so then who becomes prime minister? In a parliamentary system, the head of the party that is in the majority becomes prime minister. You don't vote for a prime minister, you vote for a party. You vote for your local member of parliament. Rishi Sunak, who just resigned as Prime Minister of the UK, is also a local member of Parliament from his own district. It would be tantamount to, well, I hate to say it, but under current construction, it would be like Mike Johnson being the head of the nation, because he is the head of his party in the legislative body. And even that analogy is not perfect and not a smooth one. But the bottom line is that conservatives in the UK, the Conservative Party are basically the Republicans. They're the corporatists. They want to privatize everything. They don't want rich people to pay taxes. Damn the poor. Demonize, criminalize being poor. Labour, closest thing to the Democratic Party in our country. And again, even those comparisons are not perfect. But it's close. Actually, quite close. Because the conservatives in the UK have become more and more like American Republicans. That said, so within a matter of hours, when the election results came in, the following morning, Sunak resigned, went to the king, offered him his resignation, and I think it was a whopping 4 hours later, the head of the Labour Party, Keir Starmer, accepted the prime ministership and went to the king to be recognized. And after, the Conservatives have been the dominant governing party in the UK since Margaret Thatcher in the late 70s. Margaret Thatcher declared war on unions. She increased military spending, began privatizing the social safety net, deprived the national healthcare system of money. In my humble opinion, exacerbated the divide between England, Scotland, and Wales. Encouraged and built up and expanded the military campaign against the IRA in Northern Ireland. And while the Conservatives have not had a straight run of power since Thatcher, they have been the dominant governing party. Even for the small bits where Labour was in charge, they had to make a coalition. And finally, the British people, realizing the mistake of Brexit, and it has been, watching the NHS slowly be privatized, watching oil and gas drilling being expanded to the profit of the companies, not the country. Railways have been privatized, they don't run anymore. Education has been defunded. A war has been declared on unions. Does it all sound familiar? Sounds like the United States. And finally, the British public stood up and said, enough. Enough of this. If we are going to pay into this system, we're going to get out of it what we're paying in. Similarly, the 2A sort of the story is in France. President Macron is not a progressive by any stretch of the imagination. If I was to liken him to something in the United States, my humble opinion would be, at best, Eisenhower. If he were here in the States, he'd be a Republican. I'm not sure this Republican Party would allow him in, but he'd be a Republican. And going into the French elections, it was thought that Randall mentions in the chat, Margaret Thatcher was the UK's Ronald Reagan. She was in office first. She took office in 1978. She was there first. He learned from her. That said, it was thought going into the elections, the far-right party in France of Marine Le Pen, and you've probably heard the name Marine Le Pen. She's run to become prime minister, president of France. I think this was her third or fourth try. She leads a very far-right party. No taxes on rich people. Corporations get to do whatever they want. No regulations. War on unions. Scapegoat immigrants. Play on the divides of communities. Very, very fascist set of principles, if you will. Principles loosely, using the word principles. And it was thought going in that the far right was finally going to win in France. And they didn't. And why? And what can the United States learn from it? Because the left parties, even though they didn't agree on everything, agreed that Marine Le Pen cannot become president of France. So they pooled their resources. They went to their individual constituencies and said, look, you might not like that guy, but he's not them. And at least if we all stick together, if this handful of parties, because the French being a parliamentary system as well, if this handful of parties can stick together, we can defeat the far right. And that's exactly what they did. So where's the lesson here domestically? Democrats are going to have to do the same thing. You may not think that Joe Biden should be on this ballot, but damn it, the alternative is the end of democracy. That's what we can take away from these European elections that happened over the weekend. We're in our last 60 seconds. George, turn the camera on. Oh, come on, George. I'd love to do it for him. There. Okay, Donna. Sorry. Now you get to see George from the lair.
The lair.
We're in our last 60 seconds. Let me wrap up for everybody at GCPR, for the entire team. Thank you for being here. That's TKE tonight for the 8th. We will be here tomorrow night. Cold Dead Hands comes up right after us. If you missed any of the program, youtube.com/that other side of information, youtube.com/GCPR live. Check us out. Go to the website. Cold Dead Hands is live on GCPR. Starts right now.